The Spinoff Podcast Network.
Are you making the most of your KiwiSaver investment? Generate is an award-winning KiwiSaver provider with a track record of strong long-term performance. Making a smart decision now could add tens of thousands of dollars by the time you reach retirement. Book a no-obligation chat with a Generate KiwiSaver advisor today at generatekiwisaver.co.nz/get-advice. A copy of the product disclosure statement is available at generatekiwisaver.co.nz. The issuer of the scheme is Generate Investment Management Limited, and of course, past performance does not guarantee future returns.
I'm Toby Manhire, and this is Juggernaut, the story of the Fourth Labour Government, a podcast in 6 parts.
Doesn't give my opponents much time to run up to an election, does it?
This nation is at risk.
What do you think you're up to now, you perverted little liar?
I could smell the uranium on it as you lean towards it.
There's a radical overhaul in the history of New Zealand's administration.
Juggernaut, the story of the Fourth Labour Government, made with the support of New Zealand On Air. Listen now on the Spinoff or wherever you get your podcasts.
Did I go to katoa?
If I go like that, sorry. If I go like that means I don't know anything about it, and you just go like that.
Okay. Tēnā koutou katoa. Happy New Year. It's February. It's 2021. This is Gone By Lunchtime. I'm Toby Manhire, that's Annabelle Mather. Kia ora.
Kia ora, tēnā kōrua, tēnā tātou.
There's Ben Thomas.
Happy New Year, everyone.
Jonathan is on engineering knobs and buttons. Welcome to him. Thanks to Flick Electric for their sponsorship, and a big thank you and warm New Year to the Spinoff members, our extended whānau. 2021 has begun like a tribute act to 2020. We've had little flare-ups of COVID. We've had housing crisis, deeper than ever. And we've had the National Party shooting itself in the foot with a bazooka. they were yesterday being Auckland Anniversary Day, but all was happening in Wellington. The Basin Reserve, the National Party gathered for their summer caucus retreat. I think it was going to be up in Whangarei, but with the bit of the COVID, they held it at the Basin Reserve instead, world's greatest cricket ground. And Judith Collins, the leader of the party, began by telling everyone gathered there that the party would not be leaping at distractions, would not be taking the bait. And then, in this kind of great act of almost political jiu-jitsu, they illustrated that point by suggesting Shane Retty, Dr. Shane, the reliable, lovable Dr. Shane, one of the stars of 2020, now the deputy leader of the National Party, insinuated that Labour ministers had controlled the message around the little bit of hanky-panky in the Grand Millennium Hotel in the MIQ with the delivery of the wine and all that sort of stuff. And he managed to kind of achieve precisely the thing they'd been warning about.
Just asking some questions. How do you manage to speed pick up somebody in a managed isolation quarantine facility? What have you written on the back of your mask? You know, how do you arrange for the wine liaison? I think these are questions that the public has a right to know the answer to.
Annabelle, how are you feeling? How confident are you about Her Majesty's opposition?
I was excited to read Judith Collins' announcement that National will be contesting the Māori seats, perhaps not all of them, but building up capacity there. I think that's a good thing. I think that, for a start, beggars can't be choosers, and obviously they need to get votes wherever they can, so there's an air of pragmatism to it, I imagine. But I also think it's important because, besides the issue of having a contest of ideas in those seats, so long as they're not dangerous ones a la the New Zealand Party, that Māori should be able to vote for the candidate of their choice and not be excluded from voting for a national candidate if they happen to be registered in a Māori electorate. And I also think that it enhances the mana of the Māori seats when they're being fully contested, and I think it's a lot harder to argue to disestablish those seats when you have more parties contesting in them. So I think it's a really good thing. My only concern is that it has to be an and approach to to Māori representation for national. It can't be like, okay, we're going to round up Dr. Shane and his homies and dump them all in the Māori seats. You still have to have Māori standing in general seats for national, but it's a great way of bringing through new Māori MPs, blooding them up on the campaign trail, all of that sort of stuff. So I welcome that move.
It's been a while, hasn't it? It's been, I think it was 2002 the last time that National stood in the Māori seats, and then of course we had, was the Ottawa speech 2005?
Yeah, so under Dom Brash, National took a great animus towards the Māori seats, said that they were race-based division, special privilege, etc., and their policy became to abolish the Māori seats, and they campaigned on that in 2005 pretty strongly. Under John Key, the goal of abolition was retained, and that was also a campaign policy in 2008. But in coalition or in partnership with the Māori Party, John Key moderated that policy to the eventual goal is the abolition of the Māori seats, but only with the consent of Māori, only when Māori want it. And that's remained the position to this day. And if that's your position, it seems, and in fact, even if that's not your position, it seems insane not to run candidates in those seats, because all it effectively means is more billboards and more people at meetings, promoting National Party talking points, which is, of course, what you want in an election, where you want as much coverage as possible. It's MMP, every vote counts, every opportunity to spread your message counts. And obviously, the more that the people who are hearing the message can relate to the people who are promoting it, in their local communities, the better. So, I mean, this is a bit of a no-brainer for National. Pretty amazing it's taken them this long to come to that conclusion. It's sort of, there was a sort of widening kind of National's sort of position, I guess, under Judith Collins, a bit more sort of centrist, a bit more lefty. She was talking, lefty. She was talking to Rotary about the need for house prices to perhaps stabilise or even come down. Did the old John Key sort of tactic of trying to reach across the aisle and saying we'll support urgent legislation to rezone urban centres in advance of the National Policy Statement, which the government passed last year, coming into effect, which is about 4 or 5 years away. So they are trying to tack towards the centre. It's not completely natural.
Well, when you're
Collins.
on 25% in the polls, you realise you need to get a kind of a broader coalition within your own party, right? And I guess one of the things during those years, some of those key years, when you had the Māori Party as a support party, then there was a pragmatism attached. It obviously suited the Māori Party for the National Party to be there and not to be there. There was still Māori electorate MPs represented within the wider government.
The thing is that National has a lot of work to do in the Māori seats, but to be fair, they have a lot of work to do in all of the seats. But I think it's important to remember that, the Māori seats weren't established by Māori, they were established by Pākehā to ring-fence the Māori vote when Māori were a much greater portion of the New Zealand population. But, in the modern environment, they've come to represent something very important, which can't be achieved by Māori who stand in general seats. Māori in general seats is not enough. The Māori seats represent the specific representation of Māori electorates, and what's good for Māori electorates is not necessarily good for general electorates and vice versa. So they remain vitally important, and any moves that, enhance the mana of those seats is a good thing.
That principle of Māori representation being ensured is also seen on a local level, where there are some Māori wards, and there was obviously the controversy around New Plymouth. Yesterday, Nanaia Mahuta, in her capacity as a local government minister, announced legislation to change this particular rule, which means that even if a council votes to install Māori representation, Māori wards, that you just need to get a poll with 5%, I think is the rule. It's sort of a quirk of the system that means that it's too easy to throw out those decisions by council.
Yeah, it's been a long time coming, that change. I understand that that was put into the Local Government Act back in 2002 when it was reformed, and it was something that Labor actually wanted as part of its coalition with the Alliance. So it's been a long time coming, and again, it's a good thing because, as the saying goes, when it comes to Māori consultation, the quick way is the long way and the long way is the quick way. So to have Māori at the table in council, I think, is going to have, a tangible impact in terms of being an early warning system for both Māori communities and the council itself in terms of RMA, all of that stuff. Ihu Mātau is a great example of, if there had been better representation at council, a lot of the heartache and money that's been poured into this issue could have possibly been avoided. But having Māori at the table of council in 2021 has to be a no-brainer, doesn't it?
Well, ideally all councils would be abolished. I think, it's sort of a serious point in the sense that, councils aren't really democratic at all. They're basically creatures of statute created by the Local Government Act, and there's nothing particularly democratic about them, right? Kate Newton did a great piece for Radio New Zealand a year or two back about how even in the brownest, poorest areas of Auckland, the most participation in local government in terms of submissions, in terms of testimony at committees and things, came from the rich white residents of those areas. Yeah. So there's underrepresentation at every level in every area of local government. Now, it's not a democracy, it's a gerontocracy run by old, rich white property owners and ratepayers.
Not a gerontocracy. I don't know, shouldn't that be a soft G? If it's like geriatric, is geront or geront?
I don't know.
Say it again.
I said gerontocracy.
I don't know. Maybe you're right.
Oh, geriatric. Yeah, right.
You might be right.
No. Look, this is a learning experience for all of us.
Get in touch. How do you get in touch with us? Send us a tweet. I don't know.
I personally think that you would get better representation if you also had a youth ward for people under 22 to opt into.
For the youngies.
Yeah, but I'm not sure,
So what else? Are you going to carve up the entire population into particular groups and then have them represented?
Like the Metlers and the hip hoppers.
Well, that's what we do in Parliament with MMP, right? And there's no particular reason. There's no particular reason not to do that in local government.
But the ultimate problem that the gerontocracy you're talking about is that the people who are moneyed and of particular age are massively overrepresented. But so MMP has the same problem.
Well, the thing is,
it has less of a problem than local government because local government is just small enough in scale that the cranks can have an effective voice and have their own way, and it's just large enough that causes problems for everyone else.
Okay.
But in terms of, so there's no reason not to divide up wards by constituencies that aren't just geographic in local government. On the other hand, I'm not sure that Māori wards are the best way to give effect to a kind of treaty partnership at a local government level. I would have thought that if what you're looking at was treaty partnership and you're looking at what local government does, which is administer sort of local resource management, issues about the area itself, that you'd have something instead like an appointed iwi representative, sitting on the council, rather than...
How would you appoint them? Democratically?
Ben's doing it. Like he's hedeciding whether or not who gets to...
Well, no,
is he like long listing and then short listing?
Yeah. He's going to consult widely.
To be fair, I don't think it's just about the treaty relationship, although that's a huge and important part of it. It's also about reflecting what those communities, and you're right, there is really low level of participation for Māori in local government, and it's that whole if you see it, you can be it thing. If you see Māori standing in those wards and becoming active in the community and being voices for the community at the council level, that's a great way of encouraging Māori to participate in that process. And it's democratic, and we've got things like the Māori Statutory Board, but they're appointed, they're not voted for. So,
and it is a serious point, isn't it, that there is a great deal of dysfunction in our local government bodies in New Zealand at the moment, like see Tauranga, for example, and with the demands to build infrastructure and solve the housing crisis, you do the failures at local government level aren't trivial.
No, that's right, and which is why it should be abolished, right?
But so seriously though, what are you going to replace it with when you abolish it? Nothing.
A Department of Parks and Sewerage,
all right, okay.
Department of Internal Affairs, something like that. Yeah. No, I mean, if you think about it, all of the
Department of Christmas lights. And all of the festivals.
The most pressing infrastructure
pipes.
The most pressing infrastructure problems we have in New Zealand are all the result of them being under the control of local government. The housing crisis is a result of incredibly restrictive planning and consenting over the past 2 decades.
You can't walk down the street in Wellington without having a pipe explode in your face.
The water
but also
infrastructure.
Housing New Zealand selling off lots
it's
of
water
houses
and not poo.
Well, yeah, but that's a trivial marginal issue compared to the ability of people to build more houses.
And like 75,000 houses.
Well, yeah, but that doesn't create any more houses whether you sell off or keep, state houses. And it's not just Wellington. Wellington is the most obvious because, its residents are literally stepping through shit on their way through Willis Street. But across the country, this has been well signalled for at least the last 10 years that there's between, I think it's about $80 to $100 billion worth of upkeep that needs to be done on the pipe systems, the things that keep us all from wandering through the roads like fucking medieval peasants.
And the worst thing is not only are you stepping over shit to get to work, but then you're stepping under giant golems and dragons and elves and stuff. It's hideous.
If they reroute the pipes to the kind of giant wetter figures, so they actually become kind of amazing animatronic shitting goblins.
No, it'll be a beautiful thing. Instead of taking an Uber to Wellington Airport, you'll be floating on a little boat between the giant Lord of the Rings statues on either side. I mean, and this is because essentially you can't have people like Andy Foster in charge of huge vital infrastructure. There was a great piece in Stuff, I think by Joel McManus, where every mayor of Wellington for the last 20 years said, "Oh, this was inevitable, but not my fault."
Yeah.
And then when pressed on it, said, "Well, I'm just some local community kook who decided to stand for local government. I can't be expected to manage $1 billion wastewater infrastructure system." And they're right, the Three Waters reform is taking responsibility away from local government. The National Policy Statement on Housing and the Urban Development Authorities is taking authority away from local government. All significant progress in New Zealand involves taking power away from local government. And, and I don't think it'll happen, that it'll be disestablished in one go, but incrementally it will basically wither into being sort of local residents' activities associations.
Ceremonial mayors, that's where we're heading, is it?
That's right, and they can turn up to library events. And
I kind of feel like it's the opposite. It's like when local government is more localised, that's when it's most effective. The further up you push it, the longer it takes to get
the local board level.
Done.
So,
yeah.
It's the first week of February, and that means Waitangi is...
Go to www.benthomas.co.nz for the deleted 45 minutes further discussion on local government and
and earwax, which I'm sorry we haven't got to yet. Annabelle and I, we've been talking a lot about earwax.
Just biding my time.
That's platinum members only. That benthomas.co.nz. The Prime Minister is on her way up. They're already there today. I think it's today. Members of the Māori caucus are going to Te Tii Marae, the Lower Marae, which is where it's more fun, and it's where there's been more controversy happen over the years. I don't know how much we can read into that. What else are we looking out for this week, Annabelle Lee Mather?
Well, I've got a helpful suggestion, which is, given the recent COVID scare, why don't we just put our national shit fight on hold for a year and just have a holiday, let Ngāpuhi have a rest. Give Hone the day off. Everybody just chill.
They did that at Ratana this year.
They did.
Was that
was a slightly different issue.
That's the thing. Let's just leave it. Everyone's tired.
Everybody just likes sunbathe for the weekend. Obviously use sunscreen and stuff, but...
Everyone's tired. Nobody wants to get up at 4 a.m. for the dawn march up to the Waitangi meeting house.
But
what about the sausage sizzle? Can we keep that? The Prime Ministerial sausage sizzle is now the sort of formal pillar of our national partnership.
Yeah, but what we're going to just send sausage packs out to households.
Or vouchers.
Yeah. It is kind of an important issue. Well, it's not kind of it is an important issue because, we have had that recent flare-up and the government has taken a sort of cautious approach to COVID, but it's important to remember that, Northland has some of the worst outcomes in this country, the worst health outcomes. I mean, you can't even get a dentist in Kaikohe. Healthcare, all of that stuff, and our kaumātua up there are really, really vulnerable. And as we're seeing overseas, particularly in the States with, Indigenous populations over there, our Indigenous people are being wiped out by this epidemic, and they're the repositories of our mātauranga. And so we have to be so careful, and I can't understand why the police won't support Hone's iwi checkpoints. He's handing out advice about where testing stations are and local healthcare services. It just doesn't make sense to me.
The two Māori MPs have announced they're not going.
Good on them. Yeah, I think that's awesome. I think that's awesome that they're taking that approach.
Yeah, I'm not sure about the need for checkpoints at level 1 when it's relatively well controlled. Otherwise, you're essentially making them a permanent feature.
We were level 1, but there was someone in the community that had the South African strain of COVID. It's that thing where Māori are always criticised, why don't you guys take control of your blah, 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 when things are bad? But when Māori actually do step up, they're criticised for that as well.
Oh, I think the checkpoints were extremely useful, during the lockdowns. And I think they actually fulfilled a function that, maybe the police hadn't, when you looked at the stats, I think it was within the first couple of days of lockdown, police were essentially waving everyone through to leave Auckland.
People particularly some radio hosts whose names weren't mentioned get very excited about it because it's iwi checkpoint. But if you said it was a community group handing out flyers with information, which is what it is.
If it was a student army doing it, everyone would be falling over themselves to do profiles about how wonderful they are.
Okay, that's good. That's sort of.
I think that's fair. Now, also, actually, just on the COVID issue.
Yes.
Did you guys watch The Bachelorette NZ last night?
Haven't got to it yet.
Some important COVID intel there. One of the Bachelorette contestants, i.e. one of the bachelors, described himself as a business analyst working for the government on MIQ. Managed isolation quarantine. And
had he recently visited any rooms at the Millennium Grand Hotel bearing a bottle of wine?
Well, his experiences on the show may explain the recent uptick in romance at MIQs. Maybe that was made an important feature.
Okay.
But I was just sort of thinking, given that we're all pulling together as the team of 5 million, how many people on the MIQ and COVID response team get given sort of 6 weeks off to film a reality TV show?
When was it recorded?
Well, this is what I'm trying to. I was Googling and it was before the end of 2020. So it could, did it match up to You know, the August lockdown, did it match up to, the post-election COVID case in the community?
There's definitely room there to monetize some of our quarantine facilities by introducing reality television elements to them, I think. The Pullman is about to close down on the weekend. The Pullman, which has basically been teeming with COVID, just like the pipes are just full of the shit, just going around
like on the Alien movies where they go into the thing and there's like the eggs and stuff everywhere. It's like that.
It's exactly like that. And so it's quite right that they're closing it up for a bit. And they're putting CCTV cameras in, but why don't they just go the whole hog and invite people if they want to go? Pullman's a nice hotel, right? It's a 5-star hotel. If you want to go there, you have to participate in this reality television, and then we can monetize it. What do you think?
5 buggy stars.
Shit, what's it called? It was it was that American show. It was like a dating show, but they were talking through a wall.
Oh, yeah. I know the one you mean. I haven't watched it, but I've heard about it. They don't get, or is it the dating in the dark one?
No, I think Dating in the Dark's where they like touch each other, so you wouldn't want that.
Unless they were gloved and masked.
No PPE. Giving each other a good feel.
Can I just say,
extremely non-naked attraction, where you see.
Can I just
judge people entirely by their eyes and the fit of their hazmat suit.
Yeah.
Just coming back to iwi checkpoints, the other good thing about them is that the more there is of them, then the less the police have to guard broadcasters' bathroom windows to ensure that Māori aren't climbing through them. I mean, that alone.
It's a great point.
John Banks didn't change. Society changed. I heard a lot of people saying, this is like something somebody would say in the 80s. It's like, it's what John Banks said in the 80s. It's what John Banks has been saying all along.
All he didn't say was, I didn't come up here on a cabbage boat. Do you remember when he used to say that all the time? I think I just came in here on a cabbage boat.
What's a cabbage boat?
Oh, it's a great question.
Nobody ever really got to the bottom of that.
But he basically had sort of 7 or 8 things he said, and he just said them over and over again. It's the People's Parliament. New Zealand needs to wake up.
Talofa lava. I'm Madeline Chapman, editor at The Spinoff. If you have the means, consider supporting our high-quality journalism by becoming a Spinoff member. Sign up now at thespinoff.co.nz/donate.
Kia ora, I'm Duncan Grieve, founder of The Spinoff. You can help us keep all of The Spinoff's award-winning journalism free for everybody by becoming a member today at thespinoff.co.nz/donate.
Damien O'Connor was made some headlines. He's the trade minister, newly appointed trade minister.
That was an interesting decision.
And he quite quickly found himself in headlines in both Australia and China.
Killing it.
I think he later acknowledged he might have misspoke a little, but he basically said that the Australians might learn a thing or two from New Zealand's diplomatic approach to China, to which China said, quite fucking right. And suddenly all of its completely independent media ran, lengthy analyses on how Damien O'Connor, scholar, gentleman, and great political genius, had identified precisely the error of Australia's ways, which was to say that they were less compliant, deferent, and subordinate.
That's right. They
China.
needed to show a bit more respect.
Yeah.
Was what he said, which was an interesting.
Judged.
I mean, look, Damien O'Connor's just like, hey, I'm mediating here. It's because Nanaia Mahuta, actually, the newly appointed foreign minister, sort of provided some dramatic foreshadowing of this a few weeks ago when she sort of proffered that New Zealand might mediate between China and Australia. And Damien O'Connor obviously took the ball and ran with it, and kind of
This is like when Marion McKelly solved the Middle East peace process.
There is a particular strain of the New Zealand psyche whereby we actually believe all of this kind of, punching above our weight in world affairs sort of
Oslo derangement syndrome.
When I went to Taiwan on a business junket when I was a reporter, they took us to their Ministry of Defence to tell us about, Taiwan's unique role in the world. And basically they described themselves in the exact same way that New Zealand describes itself, a little plucky battler providing a moral compass for the rest of the world, an ideal of democracy and liberalism to look up to. And they showed us a map with Taiwan in the centre of the map, just like New Zealand is in the centre of our maps, but there was a big heart over Taiwan with rainbows coming out. And I just sort of thought, all small countries with large neighbours are kind of the same, eh?
Absolutely true. And although I would just pick you up on our maps don't have New Zealand at the centre of the map.
Well, not that no, but it is. It's down the middle.
Right.
It's not like in the centre.
Is it? Or is it down the bottom?
We're dangling
bottom right?
off the bottom. We're
like the bottom
there.
right.
Bottom right, but dangling off the page.
Yeah,
maybe this is an internet problem. Like maps that were sold in New Zealand used to have.
Wherever you go and you click on Google Maps, it always puts you in the middle. Is that what you mean?
So are we in the middle, and then Antarctica is like?
You guys spend way too much time online, so you're looking at American maps where America's in the middle.
No, I'm looking at earwax.
No, we're looking at primary school maps. So, Damien O'Connor, the best thing about that, I thought, was that one of the Australian papers, I think it might have been the Sydney Daily Telegraph, had a headline saying, calling us New Zealand, which I thought was quite good.
Yeah. That was...
Z as in G. Good times. Really the big news of this week, which we should pay due attention, was the strangely timed release of a big doorstopper of a report from the Climate Change Commission. The Climate Change Commission was established under the Zero Carbon Act. It's kind of roughly a copy of the British Climate Committee, I think it's called, which was set up by David Cameron. And the idea is that you have this non-partisan organisation that lays out you must call it a roadmap. That's the essential description. It's a roadmap that sets out a roadmap for New Zealand to meet its obligations under the Paris Agreement. And it was dropped on Sunday in the middle of an Auckland anniversary weekend on 2 o'clock in the afternoon or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. It was slightly weird, but still.
It should really be a rail line map, shouldn't it?
A rail line? Oh, so you mean a road.
A tram line.
Tram track.
A light rail.
The tram track.
Yeah.
For
I don't know, I didn't get it, Toby.
the hovercraft chart.
The bike lane.
The bike lane.
The national cycleway.
The cycleway to net zero carbon emissions. So that came out. The general response was that it's affordable and achievable. That was what Jacinda Ardern said. The Commission itself, Rod Carr, the chair of the Commission, said that this doesn't require completely tearing up the room. It doesn't require a revolution. It requires sort of going further. It's going to cost 1% of GDP roughly to do it. What's it going to mean? Electrifying the cars, getting rid of the fossil fuels in energy. What was the other thing? Cattle and sheep stock numbers. That's going to be one of the pinch points, but that's down by 15% by 2050. I mean, it's kind of most of it seems manageable. What do you experts think?
Do we get to have like mass cow sacrifices or something?
I'm not sure they're going to do it that way. But there are the idea is it can be achieved by making them just not fewer cows but better cows. Like we're just going to have better cows.
Like what? What's a better cow? Like bigger cows or less farty cows or more delicious so that we don't want dairy, we just want to eat them?
Yeah, all of those things. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's right. It's all science.
I'm still down for the sacrificing the cows though myself.
I think if the cow has actually been alive, then I don't think you achieve what you were setting out to achieve by sacrificing it.
Oh, so do we get them all spayed? Do we spade the cows?
I think maybe if we have fewer rather than culling them.
This is just about education, so that they make better decisions.
Yeah, makes sense.
It's kind of an important moment because it feels as though there's some flesh on the bone now. Speaking of cows, that it actually lays things out. There are going to be 3 emissions budgets, which will be laid out on the way towards the 2035 mark and the 2050 mark. And this is the draft report, and the government has to go away, and everyone goes away and consults, and then the final one comes in the middle of the year, and then the government has to actually put things in place. But it means that things really have to happen rather than talking about things happening in the future. Like, for example, at some point someone's going to have to go, we're going to ban all imports of, what do you call them?
Cars.
What is the kind of engine? Combustion. Yeah. So no more gas guzzlers, and it's just going to be electric cars, and it's going to be an Elon Musk paradise.
Yeah, and look, and that by itself is a big change, right? After 14 years, right now, a Nissan Leaf needs its battery replaced. That's basically as expensive as getting a new car. After 14 years, a Toyota Corolla is just getting going. It's just warming up. So, the era of, cheap cars for New Zealand, which is I think National described it as an intrinsic part of our lifestyle. And it is, that's something that people are used to, and that will probably stop in about 10 years.
If you think of one of the most postcard scenes is the glorious Auckland waterfront reaching out across the Hauraki Gulf. And if you look down there, you can see thousands and thousands of Toyota Corollas, which have just come off big ships and are feeding that New Zealand dream of cheap offloaded second-hand cars from Asia.
Yeah, and look, and we're a long spread out country. It's Auckland, Wellington could go electric relatively easily.
More geography from Ben Thomas here.
There will be much, much more work to be done in the regions. And obviously there will need to be big advances in technology as well. I mean, New Zealand buys way too many, twin cab utes.
Double cab utes.
On the other hand, there are people who need them for their travel, for their work.
Not the ones I see.
Not the ones in Point Jet, or the ones around me and beautiful St Mary's Bay in Auckland.
Yeah.
In fact, if there were to be a revolution, which I'm not in favour of as a free marketeer and a liberal, but if there was, the first thing that should be redistributed is urban Auckland 4-wheel drives to the provinces of New Zealand.
I like that.
I like that. When you start running in the councils of the country, that can be your first act.
Yeah.
No, there won't be any councils. I think. Do we have to do another 45 minutes? I don't think you're getting it. There will have to be a lot done to create the infrastructure that you'd need to electrify the fleet in the regions. There will be big adjustments to people's lifestyles. Public transport will have to get much, much, much better. Another thing that councils probably aren't equipped to do. The one problem with climate change that I've noticed politically is that we often get sold this vision of it's an easy transition. In the 2008 election, hard to believe now, but Labour and National both campaigned as on the emissions trading scheme and carbon neutrality by 2050, in fact, as one of their major planks. And they were both talking about, this was just before or just during the global financial crisis. But they were telling the story of, by securitizing and financializing carbon trading, we'll reduce our emissions to zero and we'll all become carbon trading billionaires. And it's a win-win-win-win-win. But the whole point of a lower carbon economy is that you have to stop doing some things that you currently do. You have to pay a price for things that you didn't used to pay a price for. It is actually a sacrifice, and
But it's a sacrifice so that you can humankind and animals other than cows can continue to live, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But I don't think politically our leaders do us any favours by trying to sort of continually soft pedal it, because then what happens is what happened in 2008, where the government brought in its emissions trading scheme and everyone celebrated our future as, Wall Street bets carbon traders.
Carbon oligarchs.
Pre-Reddit. But then every time a cost was associated with an industry or a consumer group because of the new ETS, that caused an uproar, and people were like, no, this was meant to be easy and make us rich. And so what we saw was climb downs and concessions on an industry by industry basis, which really stopped the ETS from having any kind of meaningful impact for 10 years or so. We don't really have that time anymore. I think that downplaying the magnitude of what has to happen, because, it is small compared to, shutting down industrialisation completely, but it's pretty large compared to the sorts of sacrifices that we would normally have to make.
Yeah, Rod Carr on the radio, speaking to Catherine Ryan yesterday, was asked whether or not, as someone who's been around, he's a former deputy governor of the Reserve Bank, I think, among other things, that whether or not it was analogous or of similar scale to the reforms of the 80s, the sweeping market reforms, and he said it was of that scale, but that we could plan it more carefully. So it is a big deal. It's a funny thing psychologically, of course, with these things, because you at once want to, whether you go, whether you ring the alarm bells, it's an emergency after all, and go crazy and try and scare the bejesus out of people, and try and do that at the same time as going, but it's okay, we can do it. It's all within the existing parameters, within the existing tram tracks. It's a funny one. I think a lot of people tend to just kind of disengage from that, as you probably are with this podcast.
Until they try and buy another Suzuki Swift.
Don't at me about the cows on Twitter, okay? I'm not advocating people actually be violent to cows. Thank you.
Thanks, Gone By Lunchtime 2021. Great to be back. Thanks, Annabelle. Thanks, Ben. Thank you, Jonathan. We will be back in a bit.
Kia ora, I'm Alex Casey, senior writer at The Spinoff. We wouldn't exist without the ongoing support of our generous members. If you're able to, you can make a donation at thespinoff.co.nz/donate.
Kia ora e te iwi, Te Aihe Butler here, podcast manager at The Spinoff. If you enjoy listening to our podcasts, consider supporting our mahi by signing up to become a Spinoff member at thespinoff.co.nz/donate.
The Spinoff Podcast Network.